Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Israel Brief with me, Rolly Marks. Thank you all for the well wishes. You can hear I'm still battling the flu, but we're going to battle through this Israel Brief together. As always, the Israel Brief is brought to you by Lay of the Land. Now, I'm reminding you that today is day 662. Israel's hostages that also include a Nepalese national, hostages of different religions, some from different countries, have been captive for now 662 days. We want them all home now. Now, yesterday there was a comment on the brief from somebody who calls himself King somebody or the other, commenting on my comment that every hostage is a universe. Saying to me, aren't Palestinian civilians a universe? Of course they are. You will notice that there is a lot of empathy right here on the Israel Brief. Nobody wants to see the suffering and the plight of the civilians in Gaza continue like this. But I would also admonish you to realize that Israelis are people too, and our hostages are people too, and you did not express a single jot of empathy for them. In order for there to be some kind of process moving forward, it is my belief that people should see both sides as human. Peace, in my opinion, will be built between the people upwards, not by governments downwards. And it doesn't help any cause for peace when people on the outside start with comments like that. So rant over. Let's take a look at the top stories, and we go to Scotland, where President Trump met with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Predominantly discussed was the issue of Gaza. Now, Starmer, like Israel's other allies, have basically blamed Israel for the humanitarian situation, completely abdicating Hamas of any responsibility. In fact, just a short while ago, the IDF released footage of how Hamas is looting these aid trucks. So let's get back to the discussion between the two leaders. And amongst what was discussed, President Trump said that the claims of starvation, he says it's very hard to fake some of the images that we are seeing, and he has asked for Prime Minister Netanyahu to do more, and more about what Prime Minister Netanyahu says a little later in the brief. Starmer went on to say that the images are horrendous and the pressure is on Israel because it's a humanitarian disaster. However, President Trump, who seems to be the only leader whether you like him or don't like him, and this is not a partisan issue, this is an issue about our hostages, seems to be the only leader, apart from Israeli leaders, who continuously speaks about the hostages, who knows at the heart of this war is the fact that Hamas invaded on the 7th of October and still hold 50 of our brothers and one sister hostage now for 662 days. Trump went on to say that Hamas steals aid and they also steal money that has been given. He says, we've given a lot of money and nobody has said thank you. So I think that was a swipe at other countries who basically have not given as much, or who have given a minuscule amount compared to the United States. He said that the US will set up food distribution centers where Gazan civilians can come and get their food without boundaries. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what the practicalities of that, considering that the Israeli and American-funded GHF is facing a lot of criticism, the majority of it propaganda, for handing out food peacefully, because Hamas want to hijack the GHF, want to kick them out of Gaza, and that way retain their control over the civilian population. What was interesting is that President Trump went on to say that Israel and the US know where the hostages are, but it would be a great, great risk for them to strike where the hostages are, and he says that he is busy speaking to Prime Minister Netanyahu and they are coming up with alternative ideas. He didn't elaborate on them, but one of the Hebrew dailies here speculated that it could mean partial annexing of parts of the Gaza Strip if Hamas do not give our hostages back. That's their speculation. That is absolutely not confirmed. The president went on to say that Hamas will not give over the hostages. They are holding them as human shields and that they are unwilling to talk. So basically, President Trump laid the blame squarely at the foot of Hamas. Now, it is expected that the United Kingdom will put forward their plan on how to come to a lasting ceasefire with the eventual recognition of a Palestinian state. And just on that, I mean, we had France last week, and we've had some countries say that they will recognize a Palestinian state, but you haven't given us the practicalities, so really it is a bit ridiculous. And on the subject of that, a confab or conference was held at the United Nations headquarters in New York yesterday, hosted by France and Saudi Arabia, with the aim of working towards a two-state solution. What Starmer agrees, what these countries agrees, is that Hamas can in no way play a part in the future. However, Saudi Arabia says normalization with Israel can't take place until there's a Palestinian state, and countries like Italy said that it's not productive right now to declare a Palestinian state. Meanwhile, Israel and the United States both boycotted this conference, with the United States State Department saying it is unproductive, ill-timed, and a publicity stunt. What is happening between Israel and the Netherlands? Things are heating up. And earlier today, it was published that the Dutch will now ban entry into Holland or the Netherlands of far-right ministers Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir. They say that the two have repeatedly incited violence against Palestinians and riled up the more extremist amongst the settlers. And again, I don't like to use the word settlers and paint everybody as a pejorative, but we do have extremists here who are roundly condemned by the majority of people here in Israel. Both of them brushed it off, with Smotrich saying that the Dutch have basically surrendered to radical Islam. Meanwhile, last night, a very interesting exchange took place between President Herzog and the Dutch Prime Minister Schoof, where the two had exchanged a phone call, and the Prime Minister tweeted out basically very harsh recriminations against Israel, demanding more for aid. And President Herzog responded by saying, "Sorry, Mr. Prime Minister, your tweet does not reflect the spirit and the details of what was discussed," and said, "I'm extremely saddened that there is no mention of the hostages and the horrific conditions that they are facing." So thank you, Mr. President. And finally, let's turn to the big issue of the day, which is aid. And Germany and Spain have said that they will airdrop aid into the Gaza Strip. In a statement released last night, Prime Minister Netanyahu said that the situation in Gaza is difficult. It's very difficult. He's not denying that. But Israel is doing everything we can to increase sending in aid. We have paused the military campaign in densely populated civilian centers. We have set up humanitarian aid corridors. We're working with international aid agencies, the US, European partners, to push that aid out. Yesterday, it must be noted that 130 trucks went in from the Rafah crossing, 73 were looted, and only about 30-something made it to the aid warehouses. And these scenes contrast with scenes from the GHF, where the aid is being distributed very, very peacefully. And I urge you all, if you're on X, to follow Andrew Fox. He was at one of the distribution points controlled by the GHF, yes, and you can see with your own eyes what the situation is on the ground. Meanwhile, it seems like a lot of leaders like Starmer and Albanese in Australia and everybody criticize Israel. They abdicate Hamas of any responsibility, but they don't give solutions. They don't explain how we should be increasing aid or what more we should be doing. None of them have ever had to face this type of warfare. And if you follow Major John Spencer, who on his Substack has published an article that Israel's aid is unprecedented in the history of warfare, there's a lot of criticism from countries who have never had to face this kind of warfare. Now, of course, we want to see an increase in aid. There is definitely more that Israel could be doing. We don't want to see civilians suffering in any way, shape or form. But abdicating Hamas of their role in this is absolutely obscene. So those are our top stories, and I have a question from Toby in Cape Town who says, has the British media and all those who ran those very, very, very traumatizing pictures of little Muhammad and Osama corrected their publication? Absolutely not. They haven't corrected it, which is why all of us can play a role in demanding that our media do better and they actually publish the truth. In fact, news.com.au in Australia, and here I ask all my Australian friends to write into them, published an article today where Prime Minister Albanese has perpetuated that image of little Muhammad who suffers from a genetic disorder, and ask you all to demand an apology, not just from your Prime Minister, but also that the news.com.au corrects their article. So guys, that's it from me for today. Don't forget to join me again tomorrow. And if you have a question, please pop it in the comments section or be in touch with us via our website. And don't forget to start getting those mentors and morons of the week through to me for Thursday. In the meantime, please follow our website on www.layoftheland.online. David Collier's excellent expose on little Muhammad is up there. Please read it, please share it. It's also on our Facebook page, at Lottle's site. Our YouTube channel is right here at the Israel Brief. Guys, if you like our content, please hit that subscribe button. We are on Instagram at Rolene Marks, LinkedIn at Rolene Marks, and X at Lay of the Land 5. So guys, that's it from me for today. God bless you all. I will see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.